All right, let's go to my number 2 linebacker in this class, Dawn, and your number 4. That is Chris Paul Jr. from Ole Miss. We'll talk about breakout season. Chris Paul Jr. had it with the Rebels this past year. He's a really, really fluid athlete, makes plays sideline to sideline, sticks with running backs and tight ends in man coverage. Outstanding tackler. Over the last 2 years, he's only missed 6% of his tackle attempts. He's a weapon as a blitzer, really explosive player overall, really explosive downhill, and a really good communicator pre and post snap. He really was kind of the quarterback of Ole Miss's defense this past year. Now, really undersized. His weight is in the 2nd percentile for the position. Arm length is in the 1st percentile for the position. And his lack of size kind of shows up when he's attempting to take on blocks. He kind of gets washed out of plays a lot of times by offensive linemen and even tight ends sometimes. And he's not as good in tight spaces as he is in the open field. This is a guy you want with his athleticism to be out in open space. When you want him in tight quarters, it's not as good. He's got to add mass to his frame, but I think he could eventually become a starting will linebacker in the league thanks to his athleticism and his intelligence. And like I said, Chris Paul Jr. was excellent this past year with an 87.2 PFF grade transferring in from Arkansas. Again, he's undersized at 6'1", 222 pounds, but I like this guy a lot, man. I thought he showed a lot of really good things at Ole Miss this past year.
Paul's a really fundamentally sound player, and actually watching him stylistically reminded me a lot of watching Junior Colson from last year, who I just thought was a quiet, kind of compact, moving, fundamentally sound, patient football player who gets where he needs to be, right? You mentioned being a really good tackler. It feels like Chris Paul is so often in the right spots. The difference, like you mentioned, between Paul and Colson, Paul being 6'1", 222 with, I got here, just under 30-inch arms. Colson 6'2", 240, 32-inch arms, right? So it's just a difference in size for that caliber of player. He's built like a will linebacker. He plays like a Mike linebacker. There's no question about his toughness or any. I think technically, when you look at Chris Paul, he's as fundamentally sound as any linebacker in this class. That lack of size is just going to be the problem, right? I think that's where it is to me. And even you talk about the lack of length, and I think he's a good athlete. I don't know if he's necessarily, he did run a 4.63 at the combine, which is pretty darn good. But that lack of size, too, you can see it in coverage. There's not a ton of plays on the ball. One career interception, which I think he might have gotten his very last game of his career against Mississippi State. I'm pretty sure in the Egg Bowl that came. But that's the thing, is just I love watching him fundamentally. Just the way he plays linebacker, that's the way you want guys to play it. 6'1", 222 is tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It just is. He's going to have to be bigger than that, get up into the 230s somehow while keeping the speed that he does have, right? And again, that's a 222 combine measurement. Those can mess with us. We talked about that with Mason Graham even. Okay, is he 295? Is he 315? What is he, right? But Paul, again, fundamentally sound player, solid athlete, does a little bit of everything for you. I would just worry about the lack of size. That's at a spot. I mean, we just talk about roughly those same measurements for Jalen Walker before, right? And Walker's a guy, he runs a 4.4, right? If Paul's going to run a 4.6 at that size, he's going to have to add something on there to play the way that he does. But I do like him. I think he's fundamentally sound. I would probably see him as something like a maybe late 2nd or more likely 3rd round pick. I know you have him 2nd on the board, and I get it. I get the appeal because he's very, very sound. That's his technique and his patience, especially in the run game. He's got a very measured approach. You can see what he's thinking as he plays, and his body matches that.
Yeah, he was listed at Ole Miss at 235, so this is better. If he plays at 235, at least I can get behind that a little more.
If he played in the way what he showed on tape at 235, 240, he's got a much better shot for sure. He's got a better shot because I really like his approach to the game and the patience that he plays with. We've talked about other guys who over pursuit, they're too aggressive. Chris Paul's not too aggressive. He's got just the right amount of it, and he knows when to use it.
Yeah, I actually had the comp to Diane Henley a little bit. I saw in the coverage ability especially. I thought Chris Paul Jr. was a really, really good player.
It's a good call.
I like him a lot. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.